Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. We got some rain last night. Boy, did we. It stormed, oh no, I don't know. It started probably around 11:30 midnight and stormed a good part of the night. Had quite a bit of rain, had an amazing lightning show. God's fireworks are always better than man's. And so it was quite the show last night, but we got quite a bit of rain, and they're saying that we might have some more in the forecast in the next few days. It looks like pretty good chances, so hopefully we can add to this because we need it. And it's kind of nice to not see so much dust flying around. I have a personal request, if you don't mind. I ask that you remember my second oldest son in prayer. He has epilepsy. He's an adult, lives on his own, but has epilepsy. And yesterday afternoon, he was outside walking his dog and had a seizure and fell face first into a concrete step. He's doing okay, but he looks like someone took a baseball bat to his face. His nose is broken. I believe he may have a fracture in his face. He's just swollen and not looking too good and not feeling too good. So if you could remember him in prayer. He was quite pitiful looking last night, but I think he'll pull through okay. He just told him, I said, now that you have a broken nose, you may end up with some chiseled John Wayne looking face. Who knows? Anyways, so I was reading some numbers, not me crunching numbers. I was reading numbers of world economies and projected growths. And, it dawned on me that a lot of the things that I talk about and others that you need to be prepared for are, to be honest, they're possibilities. Most of these things aren't guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that we're going to go to World War III. It's not guaranteed that, there'll be another pandemic. It's not guaranteed that, all these banks are going to collapse. It's possible, likely. It's not guaranteed. There are some things, though, that numbers just don't lie. And when you start looking at projections and stuff, it's kind of hard to ignore them. And what I'm speaking of is the projections that are out that how the world's economies will be over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years or so. And even if, when you start to look at them, even if the United States and China don't go to war, even if all of these other things don't happen, it's pretty solid looking numbers that in the future, and not too far distant future, China will overtake the United States as the world's biggest economy. And then eventually, India will also overtake the United States. And so what that means is that the U.S. is going to be number 3. So somewhere between 2030 and 2050, it's projected that China will overtake the U.S. And then somewhere in the neighborhood of 2070, India will overtake the U.S. And I know some of you are saying, well, man, I don't plan on living that long. That's true. Most of us probably won't be around by 2070. But you also have to understand that these numbers are based on the assumption that things will just continue to flow like they are. That they're not factoring in, banking collapses and CBDC and World War III and, or the next pandemic. They're just based on the trajectory of where we're going from where we're at now. So basically what that means, if nothing worse happens, Messiah doesn't come back, obviously, World War III doesn't happen, all of these things that we talk about that could happen, even if they don't happen, we are still looking at China and then eventually India overtaking the United States. And when you look at all the numbers, it's not just that their economies grow, it's that our economy shrinks. And a lot of these other countries, for instance, Indonesia, I was looking at that based on their charts. China would be the top dog, then India, then the United States, and then Indonesia. So we're watching these countries that we once looked at as kind of developing, almost third world countries, blow past us in growth. And when that happens, they're going to be, if not, they'll be the top dogs. China already is rapidly working on its military growth. I know every time I see that, someone's like, yeah, well, they're not great fighters, or they don't have the best, naval ships. I get that. But they're rapidly catching up. That's the point. They're expanding and advancing and developing at a much, much faster pace than the United States. And so in 20 or 30 years, they will most likely be much more advanced and much more powerful than us. So even if we don't see a war right now, we will most likely see one in the future, because China is not going to allow, and I can't imagine any country really allowing, another nation to overtake them economically, and to know that, China allow that they have taken over another country economically, while the other country is still bragging, yeah, well, we got bigger military, blah, blah, blah. At some point, there almost has to be a military standoff, some type of war between these two nations. This is historically true. I believe it was Ray Dalio has talked about this extensively. He's done a book or two and some videos that historically, when one nation rises up to be the new top dog on the street, at some point that and the nation that they took over in growth have to fight. It's always been that way. And so the point that I'm saying is that even if for some of you that are like, oh, quit doing this, oh, we're gonna go to war, quit doing all this fear mongering that everything, we're gonna collapse, we're gonna go to war. For those people that think that, I don't know why you watch this kind of stuff anyways, but oh well. Point is that even if we don't do the things that I talk about right now, eventually it's going to happen. So the odds of it happening are really, really high, because it's either going to happen soon because of tensions and hostilities, or it's going to happen eventually because that's just the natural flow of things. And what we're going to end up seeing is the United States no longer in a position of the top dog. I mean, even if you listen to like Janet Yellen when she's trying to downplay the de-dollarization, she doesn't actually say that the US dollar is so strong that it'll always be the top dollar. She says that, that's not going to happen for a long time, that the dollar will stay in power for a long time. She doesn't say that the dollar will stay at the top position forever, or that it can never be removed as the global reserve currency. She says, it's still got a long time, So even they know that even in the best case scenarios, that the US dollar is gonna be replaced. And again, these are best case scenarios. Whenever you see these projections and stuff, rarely do they factor in, well, what if we have World War III? Or what if there's a big pandemic? Or yada, yada, yada. So even best case scenarios indicate that things are not looking good for us as a nation. Best case scenario is that eventually, within at least a generation, and maybe 2 at the most. You know, that's the thing. We're not talking hundreds of years. We're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 50 years from now, which some of you will still be alive, that we are gonna, and that if everything goes as planned, if everything is normal, if nothing really bad happens, no big black swan events, no big shakeups, if everything just continues to smoothly progress, that in 20, 30, 40 years, the United States is not going to be the top dog. The U.S. currency will not be the global reserve. And the U.S. military will not be the biggest and most powerful. The whole face of the world will change. Just this past week, or just a few days ago actually, Xi Jinping said that China and Russia, their rightful place is to lead this new world order. To be the ones that's leading the charge for this new world order. And I actually believe that that's correct and that that's been planned. Bug flying in my eye there. If you look at the World Economic Forum and all this Great Reset stuff, it's all they do is copy everything China's doing. I mean, that's all they're doing. Klaus Schwab himself said that China, that they have the perfect blueprint for all this, what they're doing. And a lot of times I kind of think that all of this fighting, possible war, contention between the U.S. and China, it's all just a show. That the winners have already been chosen, and they got to make it look good for the people and give them a show. You know, it's kind of like the gladiators or something. So they put on this front that we're actually at odds with each other, and that the United States is actually going to fight for its position of prominence. When the reality is both sides already know who's going to win. It's already been chosen, and the U.S. is not going to be the winner. That's just speculation, but based on what we've seen happen, it may not be too far off from the truth. So I guess that the bottom line is that even if these things that we talk about all the time that could happen in the next 6 to 12 months, even if they don't happen, getting prepared in the way that I talk about all the time is actually really important, because it's not a matter of if it happens, it's just trying to figure out when it happens. Is it going to be in 6 months? Is it going to be in 12 months? Is it going to be in 2 years, 10 years, 20 years? Well, it's going to be in one of those. It's going to happen. Just got to figure out when. And so that sometimes is the hardest part, because we tend to be a little impatient. We either want to get it down, get it over with. I mean, I know for me, I think, well, I'm in a lot better shape physically right now than I will be in 10 or 20 years. So I just soon get it over with now. But if it happened in 10 years from now, I might have a chance to become even more prepared. So maybe I want it to, I don't know. I try not to think of things in that way. I try not to worry about the wins. I know that these things are going to happen. I know they're going to happen because partly the Bible says so, and partly history says so, and partly, well, all the elites and the numbers say so. So I'm not too worried about the win. I know it's going to happen. I know these things are going to transpire. Maybe not exactly the way that I talk about on here, but we know that there is a changing of the guard globally. And it's going to be a massive change for us here in the United States. We've gotten used to the privileges that go along with being the reserve currency and the the top nation on the earth. It's very possible that in the next few decades that the United States could end up looking like India has for the last few decades, or something like that. And we have to get ready. We have to continue to prepare, get our communities ready, teach our children how to do this kind of stuff. That's important, because what if it is in 20 years and not 2 years? Those little children that you have in your home, they need to know how to do this stuff too. So pass it on, build a legacy of preparedness in your home. You need to be getting your stuff ready, taking it seriously, and getting your house in order. Preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.